Yo, 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 today we're going to be talking about the 13 colonies. Let me hit you with some knowledge. We're talking about New Hampshire, New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey. But don't forget Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North and South Carolina, and Georgia. We're going to be talking about the 13 colonies of the United States, the original 13 colonies. Alright, and before we get started talking about the 13 colonies, I want to quickly mention some reasons that people from England started to colonize this new world. First was the Protestant Reformation. In 1517, a Catholic monk named Martin Luther challenges the practices of the Catholic Church. He posts this document called the 95 Theses, where he lists all of his grievances against the Catholic Church. And this ended up causing a split in what we know as the Catholic Church. And his ideas divide Europe into two groups, the Catholics and the Protestants. Protestant, and they violently oppose each other. And this conflict leads to thousands seeking refuge in the New World. Another reason people start looking to get out of England and hightail it out of there is because of King Henry VIII. Now, King Henry VIII wanted to leave his kingdom to a son. And the wife he was currently with, and you can see he had 6 of them, wasn't really producing a son. So in 1534, King Henry VIII of England asked the Pope for a divorce from his current wife. Now, that's against church practices. So the Pope refuses, and the furious king leaves the Catholic Church and begins the Anglican Church. The separation required English citizens to follow the laws of this new religion, and those who opposed the king and this new religion were persecuted, or they left England in search of religious freedom. Now, after remarrying 4 times and having no son to take the throne, Henry dies, leaving England to his daughter, Queen Elizabeth I, who believes England should claim land in the New World for England. And a final major reason is because of Spain's enormous navy, also known as the Spanish Armada. They had almost total control of the Atlantic Ocean. Queen Elizabeth orders a pirate named Francis Drake to attack and steal Spanish ships on the Atlantic. Angered by these attacks, Spain sends its navy to attack. And Drake and his fleet were much faster, so they were able to defeat the Spanish navy. And this defeat gives England control of the Atlantic and allows people from England to safely travel to the New World. Now, when we study the 13 original colonies, we group them into 3 regions. They are the New England colonies, Middle colonies, and the Southern colonies. The New England colonies are, or were, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. And the first group of English settlers to settle in New England belonged to the Puritan Church. They landed in Massachusetts. They referred to themselves as Pilgrims, and they built the colony of Plymouth in 1621. This group wrote the Mayflower Compact, which formed a government with a leader who was chosen by the group. This was an early form of U.S. democracy. Looking at some of the early settlements in the New England colonies, in 1629 the Massachusetts Bay Colony was started when more and more Puritans left England looking for religious freedom. Life and government were influenced greatly by religion, and individuals who spoke out against religious authority were often banished from Massachusetts. People such as Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson were 2 such individuals who were banished and started the colony of Rhode Island. Now, life in New England. Most people in New England were small farmers who produced enough food for their families. Farming, however, was difficult to do on a large scale due to the rocky soil, not too much fertile land, so not much was grown other than what you grew to support your family. Fishing, whaling, and forestry were the major economic activities. That's how they made their money. You got to make those Benjamins. Education was a priority in the region, and elementary school became mandatory for all children. Wealthy merchants and ship owners held important roles. Below them were yeomen, independent farmers who owned land. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the middle colonies, and these include New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. The territory that makes up New York was first settled by the Dutch, and it became the Dutch colony of New Netherlands. We've talked about this already. Now, King Charles II of England ordered the British to take the colony of Netherlands by force, if necessary. The Dutch surrendered without a fight, and England took control of the land, and soon the colonies of New York and New Jersey would be added to the British colonies. Now, the colonies of Pennsylvania, PA, and Delaware, DE, were started by William Penn, a Quaker from England. King Charles II gave Penn the land. Penn started a colony of Pennsylvania with his own framework for government, with a philosophy of equality and fairness. Pennsylvania was a place of religious tolerance, and this was very different. People here were allowed to practice their own religion. And Penn also believed in equality for Native Americans. And again, that is something that was not a widely held common thought. Delaware would be started based on these same principles. Now, because the soil in the middle colonies is superior to New England, farmers were able to grow a surplus. So that means they had enough for themselves plus extra to do something with. And this surplus was usually exported and sent to other countries, and they used it for money. Timber and furs were also popular exports in the middle colonies. And this resulted in port cities like New York and Philly to become bustling commercial centers. And the population of the middle colonies was very diverse. Still, English colonists were the majority and often looked down on individuals from other backgrounds. Now we're going to move into the southern colonies. The southern colonies include Virginia, Maryland, North and South Carolina, and Georgia. Now, the first settlers arrived in Maryland in 1634, and these individuals were seeking religious freedom. Again, we see that religious freedom is a really common theme of why people come to the New World. The large area of Carolina was first split into North and South Carolina in 1691 when two different governors were appointed. Now, Georgia was set up as a colony managed by trustees. These individuals sought to create a safe haven for those who were in debt back in England. Now, life in the southern colonies, because of the climate and the good soil and just the way everything was down there geographically, tobacco and cotton farms flourished. Africans were imported as slaves to work on the plantations, and slaves were treated as property, and it was illegal to help them escape or hide them. And that's going to lead to problems later on down the road. Well, that about wraps things up for today. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I'll see you in class. Yeehaw!